just in terms of my comments for the chair report, at the board meeting, which was on April 26th, just the two things that I wanted to report is that the board got to see the advertising marketing program that we had seen, and other committees had seen it and approved it, and the board was very favorable toward it and approved going forward with that as well. The other thing that I think was very important is they got to see the regional transit feasibility plan, which we are going to see today, which I think is very interesting and will be it'll be interesting to hear what you all have to say about that. Just a couple other comments that I had is, I don't know, have all of you seen the new website?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I went on
Just
it.
looked at it once.
Hmm?
Just looked at it one time. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Someone had said to me, it's kind of like, when you get a new upgrade on your phone or whatever, it's like it feels odd initially,
Yeah, it does.
but then
Yeah.
getting to know it, and
Yeah.
I found that it looked very clean and good. Any other comments on that?
It works better on a phone than the old website.
Oh, that's awesome. I've been trying it.
Pretty low bar.
No, I think I like the fact that it links so well too with some of the other, the tracking, the scanner code thing.
Awesome.
And thanks to Gloria for representing track
Attending.
at our
Yeah.
big unveiling
Big
ceremony.
unveiling,
Yeah.
I'm glad I got to see it then.
That was ladder swimming, so.
So, Brad, did you have any thoughts from the board meeting or any other thoughts before we begin?
I'll just add that one of the things that we did, which is important to us, was the board approved us as part of our legislative initiatives that we worked on, writing a letter to our congressional delegation, which from Florida includes some very important people to us, especially down in the Miami area. There is the current chair of the House of the United States House of Representatives Transportation Appropriations Committee, and so the board, all the board members signed a letter to the committee asking them to continue to support public transit funding in general, and then specifically our bus rapid transit project that we're implementing in St. Petersburg, funding for that, and because that, depending on who you talk to, could be at risk of budget cuts in DC. Although when we've been up there recently, whether you talk to Republicans or Democrats, they all say they will be supportive of it, and that the president's ideas on the budget are not what's going to win the day, because in the United States Constitution, they all reminded us that it's Congress that makes the budget. So we'll just have to see. But I'm optimistic that at least massive cuts, or the transit funding from the United States, will not go to zero, but it takes us constantly writing letters and talking and advocating for our projects and telling them what we're doing down here to remind them how important it is. So I thought that's an important thing that we'll just keep working on, but I thought it was really great to have a letter signed by all these elected officials on the PSTA board from all across the county supporting it.
Good idea.
Yeah.
Good. That's excellent.
Yeah.
Can we as track members do something like that? Write a letter?
I think so, yeah.
Everybody sign it?
Definitely. Yeah, we can work on a letter like that. It's a great idea.
Can we make phone
Richard.
calls individually to them?
Oh, yeah, it's a good idea.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Save my
It's like
phone
mail,
calls.
whatever you want.
Well, is it possible for us to even get an email that we can go out to the members in terms of
Yeah.
the things or our
Yes.
options? Are we
Yeah.
allowed to do that?
Yeah.
Why don't we send you a copy of the letter that the board
Okay.
agreed to send,
Okay.
and then you can use some of those talking points in however you would like
Yes,
to as citizens.
Right.
And then
Right,
if you'd
yeah.
like us to also write a letter from track based on that letter, we can do I'll sign it next time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, please, thank you.
Yeah, they say that
Yeah.
when representatives hear the voices of the consumer, then they
Yeah.
listen.
I was gonna say maybe, since we're the Transit Riders Advisory Committee, if we focus more on the experiences of the riders, like having to wait an hour in 91-degree heat for a bus, you know, things like that, of the inconvenience. I seen people on Gulf to Bay today when I was coming down here, they were just standing on a curb at a bus stop. And on Gulf to Bay, with 3 lanes of traffic moving at 50 miles an hour, man, I don't want to stand on the curb. You know, I'm going to be about 100 feet back behind a black wall. Because this is dangerous.
Yeah.
Dangerous.
Well, and again, if especially as individual riders, we can always, you know, say what everything's been.
Anecdotal, plus anecdotal.
Anecdotal.
Okay.
I think, Richard, you had something.
I did. I just, a quick question. Who's the chair of the House Transportation Committee?
His name is Representative Mario Diaz-Balart.
Okay.
One other board point I was going to mention, we had talked about that the nominating committee addressed some of the things that we had requested, that the committee had requested, and have approved that has to go to the board for approval, that several of our members, Richard will be moving up to being the full, once approved, the full representative from the South, and John Estock will become the representative for student, again, once it's approved by the board, when it goes before the board on the 24th. And we are going to be adding a couple of new members as well. We are going to have, names here again. Louis Romero will be the alternate from North County. Erica Chambers will be the alternate from South County, and Kevin Lay will be the alternate for student. So we're just adding a few new members and switching some. Okay. Then the next item will be the Forward Pinellas report, and since Carson is away this week, John Estock is going to give us that report.
Okay, thanks. Pretty typical meeting. One of the things they did, I want to mention, was, I guess we're going to do this, they added a 27th member to our board, the Citizens Advisory Committee, the CAC, which will be for track, and that's going to be Carson, and then I guess they'll put somebody else on there. One of Forward Pinellas' big things is what they call complete streets. And one of those is State Route 60. That's going to go from, I think, Clearwater Beach all the way to Hillsborough County. They want this, somebody was just talking about, 50 miles an hour. They want the goal, I don't know, there might be bike lanes. And they also, this is going to be part of the Beach to Airport Express. Just make it more humane rather than just vehicles. The other one was West Bay Drive. I believe that's from Clearwater Largo Road to the bridge. And that's pretty, I lived in Largo when I first moved here. That's really dead. It's very dead. They want bike lanes and widened sidewalks, greenery. That's one of the big things at Forward Pinellas, the stuff they do. And that was, and then we talked about priority lists and pretty much everything like that. It all is about buses, and that's one of the reasons why we're having people from one board on another. So that was basically it. That's just it.
Thank you very much. Thank you, John. Okay. Now, the next item, the first action item we have is a review of the minutes from our last meeting. Have you all had a chance to look at it? Are there any corrections to the minutes? Yes, Richard?
My last name's McDaniel, not Daniels.
Okay. We'll make that, have that correction get made. Any other corrections on the minutes? All right, I will entertain a motion to accept the minutes with the correction.
Motion?
Mark?
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carries. approved. Thank you. Now, the next item that's an action item, this ties with what John just mentioned about the appointment of a representative from our committee to the Forward Pinellas Citizens Advisory Committee. And Cassandra, did you get clarification from them about what is involved exactly?
I did. They, so just to apologize to you guys, we found out that this was approved on Wednesday afternoon, and the packets went out pretty quickly after that. From what I understand from them and the bylaws that they sent to us was that they did add a member as opposed to replacing another member. So what that means is that this group can recommend someone. We would then take that to the PSTA board. The ultimate approval would be to the MPO or Forward Pinellas board. So if we choose somebody who's already on the CAC, they would then essentially vacate their seat on the CAC and become the track member to the CAC. Or you can pick someone else from the track and have an additional seat on the CAC. So there's really there's either 3 members that are crossing over, one of which was officially appointed. That would mean that Carson, who usually gives the report, would probably relinquish that duty to whoever was the official member from this body. This is pretty typical for boards and groups. You see it a lot on the Forward Pinellas board already. There are probably 5 PSTA board members who sit on the Forward Pinellas board, but only one is specifically designated as the PSTA representative. And so that's a similar situation here. So that's the choice of this group.
Is there anyone else who would be interested in being on the Forward Pinellas Citizens Advisory Committee?
Absolutely.
Dave would be interested?
Yeah, I'd attended a couple of them, but then got lost in their scheduling changed over the holidays, and then I stopped going.
Okay. Their meetings are on
7
o'clock.
Thursday.
Yeah.
7 o'clock.
I kept showing up on Wednesday, and then just
Oh, no.
Thursdays.
Thursday, 7 o'clock.
Lately, it's been 6:30, but
Yeah.
it's 7. You don't have to
and it's a what, 2-hour meeting, is it?
go. Yeah, 7.
Good information.
You have to
Like-
be out at 9.
And in fact, anyone can attend those meetings as well. I mean, whether they are members or not. I went to one as well, and I found it very interesting. But I would, again, encourage all of you to go to 1 or 2 of those meetings. So I guess the question becomes, how do we need to get a motion to?
Well, if there's anybody else interested, and then you all just need to.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, but I was volunteering to be an alternate if anyone need, on a day that, someone's not going, I'll make sure I go.
Oh, an
Otherwise, I'll
alternate, not to
generally-
be the.
Oh, yeah, no,
the-
please,
the-
thank you. Let Carson handle that for me.
Okay.
I'd be interested, but the meetings are on Thursday night?
They're on Thursday night.
Yeah.
They're once a month.
Or once a month?
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I'd be interested in that. How much
I want
is
to
it?
learn more about it.
The same thing, well, no, less than what
Double-
this one pays.
double Oregon?
This one pays a ticket, that one doesn't even.
That's right. Cookies and crackers.
Did we say that Carson already has a seat on that board?
Carson is on that.
So
board,
he and John, independently from this group,
Mhm.
applied to be on the Citizen Advisory Committee, and they were appointed for their geographic area on that.
They're at large.
They're at large, okay. But they were appointed by the board then,
By the Forward Pinellas board.
yes.
So in essence, we could get a 3rd person on there if we nominate somebody else.
Oh,
Right, yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
in that sense.
Right, so that's what you're deciding is, do you want to appoint Carson or John, who are already there, as your official representative, or do you want to appoint a 3rd person so you have a 3rd seat?
I'd say go for
I
the
think a 3rd seat.
Absolutely.
Richard?
I think it's a great idea that we start to have track representatives in other organizations. I think when we do that, we want to be speaking in a unified voice. We want to give them credibility. Just like you're empowered to speak to the board, you're elected by us, approved by the PSTA board. So I think that we should, we need to look at our bylaws. Our bylaws don't say anything about appointing representatives. And so I'd like to table this for now as far as appointing Carson as the representative or whomever, because I think we need to go and make sure that they, that it can be put into the bylaws. Just like we were given the CAC bylaws to kind of look at. I don't really understand why we would be voting on the CAC bylaws. But I do think that if we're going to be appointing representatives, that they should be democratically elected and then approved by the board so that they speak for us if they are track representatives.
Is that, yeah.
Okay, I mean, we can certainly make it, you have the Forward Pinellas CAC bylaws to show what they've put into their bylaws for adding a member. We can certainly put something in this organization's bylaws regarding appointments. You can decide to wait a month if you want, or go ahead and appoint someone, and we can bring you back the bylaws changes next month.
Can we do that? The reason I say because my one concern is that time moves forward very quickly, and we're already, mid-year, and I don't want us to end up getting somebody official in October when our term ends in December. But at the same time, I understand, I'm not discounting what you're saying in terms of having some importance of having it be.
I mean, at this point, if you choose somebody tonight, it will go to our board at the end of the month, and then it will go to the Forward Pinellas board in June, and that person will actually start at the end of June, if you pick someone tonight.
Gloria, one thing about that, we don't meet, I don't think we meet in June or July. May, this CAC committee, so they wouldn't actually, I'm pretty sure until the end of August. We meet at the end of May, and then there's no meetings.
Okay,
Okay.
So
think
the
we
waiting
get
month
going.
wouldn't be any change then?
Yeah.
Well, last year they met in May,
Yeah.
they met in August.
Yeah,
That's
and
what
that's
it's
what the
saying,
schedule
yeah.
is.
So that's fine,
So
if you want to wait, yeah.
Yeah, I just really want to, I'd like to see the, put in a process where we can appoint representatives, because I just didn't see
So we'll put that
that.
into our bylaws for the next meeting, is that?
Right, so at the next meeting, we'll bring you a bylaws change for this group, as well as ask you to appoint someone to the Forward Pinellas CAC.
Yeah, I mean, we could appoint somebody tonight and then put it in the bylaws, whenever. Just-
Or you could just say, let's take interested parties and you can vote on it next time or something. Or you can do it all next time, it's up to you.
It strikes me the person who wants this position will pretty much, will define their role as we go. They'll have a chance to say, I don't want to be involved with that. I mean, I didn't really. It strikes me we should pick a person today with sort of a blank slate. We'll write the ticket later, and they have a chance to say, oh, I didn't realize I had that responsibility. I don't want it. Let the second have it.
Yeah.
Say that again. Rather than us waiting to make the rules, because more than likely the rules are going to fit exactly what they think they are. I'm going to go sit on Forward Pinellas representing track. I kind of get it already. Let's dot the i's second. Why don't we pick a person now, write the law to this generic position, get them signed up, write the rules in the next month and approve them. They have a chance to back out if the rules are somehow crazy that they don't agree with them. I mean, I can't imagine that.
The two things that I'm thinking is, I would like to have Carson be here on the day when we're voting on this.
Right.
That's true, too.
Because Carson has been, basically our spokesperson, and so I guess, my view is, I would be very comfortable with us waiting till next
Sure.
meeting to actually vote on
I think
this.
my first meeting is
And then we can vote on the bylaws, but I hear what you're saying, and I did hear who was interested, and we can, at that point, we can vote who is going to be our representative. And in the meantime, someone can also check with CAC and see if we assign Carson or John as our track representative, do we then lose that third slot? Does that then fall into?
Right.
Or will they let us, I doubt it, but, will they let us fill with one of our like-minded people? So, okay, I guess if there's no opposition, then we will table that to next.
I would
do we have
not
to
use
vote
the
on it?
term table, just.
Sorry, if I threw that out.
We just say
I
we'll
don't-
postpone it till next time.
Postpone
Table
it to-
means that you have to put it on the table, somebody has to take it off the table. It's,
Ah.
Sorry for throwing that word out there.
Yeah. I'm always.
just say, we'll postpone that till next month.
We're going to postpone that to next month.
Although, question, someone's going to have to craft this language then. We'll have it crafted between now and then? Something
Yeah,
to-
Yes,
it's,
we'll have-
it's
You
not,
guys will?
not,
It's not going to be very hard to
That's
understand,
not
just
the
as long as someone
challenge.
does it.
If somebody from track needs to be a part of that, I'd be willing to do that.
Send an email around.
Thank you, Rob.
Self-included.
Beg your pardon?
I said I'm included with that. I want to know more about it. So when I get home, I'm going to be doing some research.
Okay. Thank you. Excellent. Okay, so we will move forward then to our first information item, which will be a presentation of the Regional Transit Feasibility Study.
Good afternoon. Hi, I'm Heather Sobush, for those I haven't met, I'm planning manager. And it's really cool to see how involved you all are, and that I actually worked at the MPO for 8 years, so I spent many a night at the CAC and at other committee meetings. So it's cool that so many of you are interested in being involved, and a lot of what we work on does go through the MPO, and we're on their priority lists, and all of that's very important. So, if I can get this to work. So another important project, for not just Pinellas County, but for the region, is this Regional Transit Feasibility Plan that is currently underway. So there's been a lot of studies that have happened within the transportation region for transit projects, particularly premium transit projects. There's been over 55 in the last 20 or so years. And while there are some premium services out there, we have yet to put one through the federal process and to get federal funding for the project. So this plan is aiming to kind of bring together all the parties in the region and to identify a set of projects, a regional transit network, and then projects that can be funded and implemented, and to identify who would construct and manage the service. Won't go through this entire chart, but I think the important thing here is it's being kind of run by a consultant team, but PSTA staff is participating. We serve on the study management team, and so we do have the ability to directly review all of the technical work, and then of course we bring it back through you all and through our board. There is I'll go through this first. In the first year, we would expect that we would kind of get the who, what, when, where questions answered. And then in the second year, so probably early 2018, we'd start to see what an implementation plan would look like. This is just to show how much public engagement is being done as part of this planning effort. And so this involves things like a website, social media, workshops, stakeholder meetings, going out to neighborhood groups, all of those things. Right now, and this is something you all may be interested in, if you go to tbregionaltransit.com, there is a survey on the website that you can take, and you can provide your comments through that survey and show what things you think are priorities and what you'd be interested in. The purpose of the plan really is to be forward-thinking and to look at both serving our region today, but also supporting the growth in the future. The Tampa Bay area is expected to continue to grow. It's projected that by 2040, I know that seems really a long way off, but there'll be 51% more miles traveled to our regional activity centers, and we'll talk in a little bit what is called regional activity centers. And then that would result in 219% more congestion and resulting travel delays. And that's even with more lane miles and more roadways being constructed. An important consideration in this project is how it will be funded. We talk a lot about, and if you've heard our Central Avenue BRT presentation about the federal funding process, the way this plan is being conducted is to keep all funding options open. So this is just an illustration of how long the federal process is. It is a long process, but it does give you the potential to leverage 50% of the project costs in federal funds, 25% in state funds, and 50 and 25% in local funds. So while it could be constructed quicker, we're keeping it open so that we could potentially have access to those funding sources too. I say we, I'm not really conducting the study, but I feel like I'm a part of it. So to keep our options open, the criteria being utilized by the study is the federal criteria. So it looks at things like cost effectiveness, environmental considerations, economic development, congestion relief. And then the way it's being conducted is to have 3 screens. So the first screen is really just looking at all the connections in the region and then using the criteria to narrow those down to best projects, and then further using criteria to rank the best projects. This is where it shows the activity centers. So this is the dark areas are where there's more jobs on this side and more population on this side. It's not probably too surprising, but the major activity centers in Pinellas County are downtown Clearwater area, the greater Gateway area. We say a circle here, but I mean it really stretches pretty far west. Downtown St. Pete, West Shore, Tampa, the USF area. So you see that kind of on both sides. Some areas have more employment, some have more population, but those are our big regional activity centers where there's a lot of travel in between them. So again, the study will look at all 65 corridors that connect those activity centers, narrow those down to 5, and then turn those into 3 best projects that can be ranked. The first screen looks at how those activity centers are served, the number of trips to those activity centers, and then whether there's land use policies that support increased growth around the activity centers or within the activity centers. So these are all the connections that were looked at in the first screen, all the blue lines. In Pinellas, you'll see some CSX line, you see Ulmerton, East Bay, State Road 60, but we would consider that we operate on many of our core routes. So it's the prime travel corridors within the county. After the first screen, what came out of that is these large dark blue areas were the highest performing. So again, that Clearwater to St. Pete connection, you see our Central Avenue BRT on here. There's a corridor in here that's downtown St. Pete to Gateway to West Shore, Tampa, up to Wesley Chapel. That's not really a big surprise because it connects a lot of activity centers. And then they've also included, we don't want to forget that even though these may be what are coming out of this plan as the top connections, but there are a lot of other critical corridors for both autos and for transit. And so that you see here, you know, the cross county connections, US 19, again, the CSX line, will there continue to be, or will there be potential to utilize that for premium transit in the future? So from the screening, this is a summary. In your packet, there were individual sheets that went through each one of these. I'm not going to go through all those today, or you can review those if you want that additional detail, but it was a lot of information. But essentially, not surprising, the longest corridor that connects the most activity centers came out with the most points. But we have a strong project here from Clearwater, Gateway area of St. Petersburg, and then obviously West Shore to Brandon, downtown Tampa to USF, and South Tampa to downtown Tampa. So this is what they will continue, the consultants will continue to evaluate in the next steps of the project. So they'll move these into the second screening. And in that second screening, they'll look to identify 3 really good projects that they can then bring forward. And just because they're ranked in a certain way doesn't mean one necessarily will occur before the other. There's other considerations that will come into play, especially funding and funding potential. So, yeah, that's, yes, did I miss something? Oh, I mentioned it.
But just that when you look at this list, when you
yes. The reason Central Avenue BRT does not show up on this list is because we are already in the federal process. And this list is looking for new projects to enter the federal process, or to enter that premium transit funding process. So yes, our corridor is in here. It did rise up as one of the highest performing corridors, but it's not on that next list because it is on track.
Heather, I have a question. When you refer to premium transit, I know I'm not exactly sure on that, and I don't think I've heard other committee members saying too. What does the term region or
Premium transit?
Premium transit.
Premium transit is kind of a catch-all. We would consider our bus rapid transit project a premium transit project. So it's typically a project with frequent service that runs very long hours. They don't want to get into technology at this stage of the study, but it could be things like bus rapid transit, exclusive busway or bus lanes, rail, different types of rail. It could get into any of those, streetcar. But at this phase, they're not looking at the technology. Just something that operates more frequently, attracts more riders, and provides that really, really premium service, so you can get to and from these activity centers quickly, and you know your bus is coming or your vehicle's coming in a short amount of time. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Yes?
Did they actually tell, like, the ranking, like, this is the top 5? Did they, like, this one was 15th? Did they release that?
For these, no, they have not.
Was our airport to beach, was that included? That wasn't on.
So that is on here as a regional express route, and I would actually also consider that a premium transit service.
Yeah.
But I think because this did not serve as many activity centers, it's really looking at the number of trips between activity centers, and this is only hitting 2. And so you see some of these quarters that are hitting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 activity centers are going to rise up higher. Really looking for something that can move a lot of people regionally. But that doesn't mean this is not still a priority, and this is still one of our top priorities. And so we just wouldn't take this necessarily through this federal process that I spoke of, but we would seek legislative support for the project to get funding, and we are seeking legislative support. We seek grant dollars to fund regional express bus services. And in addition, we also would like to see a regional express, regardless of this study, between the airport and downtown St. Pete too.
Richard?
I see none of the routes got any points for resiliency. What is resiliency?
I believe it was a rating that looked at flood-prone areas, and whether I think you only got points if you did not cross into any flood-prone areas in every single one of these. Every single one of these corridors. I mean, if you touch the gateway area, this entire area is, I think, evacuation level, what, A or B? Same with all this, yes. So all over the Tampa area, we have low-lying areas that if you have a major hurricane or event, you may take you longer to come back online than anything else.
Dave?
Yeah, I'm really talking more to the camera than to you and for historic purposes, but when I look at this map, I see Green Light Pinellas exactly there, which was voted down. The opponents of Green Light kept saying again and again that we made our numbers up out of thin air, none of that stuff was true. I was wondering if you could just comment for a minute, if these numbers are true, these giant blue lines that represent, I don't know, dozens of studies with actual historic data. You just say a word on that.
I mean, they do. Pretty much, we've seen these. I mean, okay, this is no surprise to Cassandra and I, and probably to many others, that these corridors are emerging. Right. In Hillsborough County, this corridor between USF and downtown has been studied many times. Back in the early plan Cassandra worked on, before that preceded this T-BARTA master plan, identified this as the #1 regional corridor. This is where the major travel patterns occur between population and employment. And there are large concentrations of jobs, in these areas. And as you're aware, many people that ride public transit are taking trips to work, and those are daily trips. So, yes, it's definitely, it's not made up.
If I just add one last thing. I just came back from San Francisco, had a great vacation, and that map looks exactly like the Tampa equivalent of the BART line. There'd be the red, the green, the yellow. I mean, that would be perfect if we could ever get the money into it. That's for the future, not for you.
We all agree with you. Any other comments or questions for Heather? Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you, and I definitely encourage you to take the survey and to sign up on their website to get updates, because they are sending out bulletins, and try to stay involved and make sure the voice of Pinellas is heard in this study. So,
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item is Bob Lasher talking about public engagement.
Okay, this is going to be a lot easier. That was pretty technical, a lot of information. I'm Bob Lasher, External Affairs Officer. I work with Juan Lubian. We're both in the planning department, and part of our jobs are outreach. We do a lot of outreach, government relations, partner agency relations, community relations. We also straddle into marketing. Juan spent a lot of the day working with the marketing crew to do some of the videos that we do out there, but also is our outreach in different forms. And I'm just kind of giving you a sum of what we've been doing over the last 6 months, including a couple of service changes, our outreach throughout the area with the service change, let's see, in October and February, with also some help of volunteer staff, 255 hours, doing just ambassador outreach. And I don't know if any of you were ambassadors. Elizabeth was when we did Williams Park a few years ago. We had the vests, the hats, we're out there letting people know this is what's changing. We're probably not going to be doing that in June, because June is mostly just some changes on the schedules. But that's what we've been doing the last 6 months. Surveys we did on the, let's see, we had the Jolly Trolley service for the Blue Jays. We were doing surveys on the Suncoast Beach Trolley, and we were also doing them riding on the 444. And those help the planning department in their efforts if we're looking to create efficiencies. And then 47 overall events of all kinds. I mean, like we did in Greenlight, whether it's going out to talk to a Rotary Club, tabling, clean air fair, whatever the case may be. What we've been pushing are these three main programs we've got going on now. Of course, Direct Connect, we've got the Flamingo Fairs, TD Late Shift. Use our partners. We try to leverage all our partners out there as we push them out. For instance, I'll get to this in a little bit more detail, but TD Late Shift, once that reopened again, that was one where I sent it out immediately to the chambers, especially along the beaches, and said, hey, we've got this great program for people who work second and third shift. Can you push it out to your clients as well? And our partners are helping us push that out also. Direct Connect is a little more complicated, and those of you who work with it, you know it. We've got 8 different zones, we've got 8 different maps. You can't really go out, I mean, you can, but if you have print out 8 maps, it gets a little complicated. So we also didn't have a lot of money for marketing. So what we decided to do when we started off and launched this is we took all of the stops throughout the county, did about a 3-mile radius, because that would be about $1. We would be pretty safe. And we looked for all of the entities within that 3-mile radius where they would have a lot of people, whether it's businesses, mobile home parks, multifamily housing, and we put together a master list, which you should have in your handout, and we started hitting them very hard, especially anyone who can help us push it out via an email. That way people could get it, go right to our website and find all of those zone maps right there. We didn't have to print them all out. First thing we were doing was calling over to Carolina. We're calling the HR departments of Raymond James, of Transamerica, of Echelon. And they were great. They said, yeah, we'll push this out. We'll send out a mass email to the employees so that the employees could learn how to use Direct Connect. Also doing, and I know Uber did some outreach, they had some people. We also will be, in the coming months, doing some outreach at some of the major stops, trying to tell people out of one-on-one. What we want to do is we want to get a quick blast out as quickly as possible, try to leverage people, because we didn't have a lot of marketing staff, we didn't have a lot of marketing money to promote it. Some of the other things we're working on, those of you who know Juan, he's great at doing how-to-rides. He's leveraged that too. Now, he used to do a lot of one-on-ones, now he's doing groups. He's got groups of seniors working on a new program, the Golden Travelers Club. He's been doing that up in Tarpon Springs, getting a lot of school groups out there. He's got a lot of groups with some kids who are developmentally disabled, and he's helping them so that they can actually get out, ride the system, and get jobs. And we're very proud of those efforts. So he's had at least 33 outings where he's out making special IDs for all sorts of members of the public, and then also teaching them how to ride. Oops, wrong button. We started with you last month when we came here and did the BRT update. We got your input. Well, we took that out to the public. We've got the planning department. They're going all over South County and other areas, and the MPO showing them what we're doing and incorporating their input as well. Our public workshop, we had one last week, got another one tomorrow down in South Pasadena, 4:30. I didn't send you guys invitations because we already came to you. If you want to go to South Pasadena at 4:30, you're more than welcome to join us. But I thought I'd save you the trip. This was just last week, we did one down at SPC, down St. Pete. Also, we're working on the circulator study. We're trying to redesign what they're doing with the downtown looper in St. Pete to make that more efficient and to better serve our current routes as well as our new BRT. And that's pretty much the overview. Oh, and I didn't mention Chambers. Chambers are some of our best partners, so we serve on a lot of the committees. If the Chambers have a government affairs committee, we'll be there. Economic development will be there. Tourist development, we try to be there. A lot of them overlap, but we do our best to cover all of them so we can go there and do the same thing with TD Late Shift, out on the beaches, to the hotels. Hey, take a look at this. You can use it. And that's the overview, 6-month outreach. Any questions? And for those of you who've helped, thank you. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank you, because I know a lot of you help us get the message out there. Yeah, Dave.
The Direct Connect stop in East Bay, Missouri, did they ever settle where that actual stop that you can get credit for that is? Because at one point I got on it in front of near the library. I didn't get a discount, and a couple times it happened.
Really?
Yeah, I think.
I know we expanded. I'm going to have to check and see how far, because the issues with that stop, and I remember, you can't stop on East Bay.
Oh, yeah.
Or Missouri.
Yeah.
And we wanted them off and into that. There's that first little parking lot right by the library. I'm pretty sure we expanded there, but let me double check and I'll get back to you.
That'd be great if you did, because that would be just perfect.
Yeah, I mean, if we can't do it safely, really.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I've had some Uber drivers say, I can't stop there. So maybe put
I
your
think
flash
what Bob
on.
is saying is
Yeah.
what I was told. We specifically knew that and oriented the zone so that you really could not stop right on East Bay.
Oh.
It is not safe.
It is.
And we expanded it to cover some of those parking lots so that Uber drivers could safely pull into one of the parking lots.
Including that, like the drugstore in the corner and the
Yeah.
7th.
CVS?
Yeah, CVS, and there's a gas station on the other side.
Yeah, I mean, I wish Chris was here to confirm that, but yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
I know he told me the CVS maybe will do something different.
Those are pretty close, actually.
Yeah.
I think it's even further into the first parking lot for the cultural center.
Okay.
I think that's covered as well, which is
Okay.
even farther. So if that's covered, then I'm sure that gas station,
Yeah,
CVS, will.
great.
I'm glad, thank you for using it. Other than that, it's been enjoyable and
Oh,
successful.
that's great, yeah.
All right.
It's a fantastic system, yeah, really. Come pick up your house, $1.30, you're down there, catch a bus. And if you,
Yeah.
I usually go online and look at the bus schedules that I want to catch, so that I don't stand out there and get fumed to death.
Do you use the real time on your phone? Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Great, thank you.
Any other questions?
Anything else?
Right. I have
Yes,
a
ma'am.
question. Would you be thinking about, for marketing, to implement on the bus marketing? Like, I was in Tampa, and they have an advertisement that plays about every 30 minutes, and it states what they have or what features they have or something they're featuring with the bus services. And I was like, oh wow, that's something great that we could implement in our bus system. And I was wondering, would you be open to utilizing that feature?
Absolutely. We actually have recordings on them now, but we only get to change them a few times a year.
Okay.
We actually have to make the recordings, then they're sent up to Long Island, they're built into this database. For instance, there's a new hurricane, we got a couple hurricane ones that'll start with our June service change, and they'll come out in October. Now, we're supposed to be getting software upgrades to that system on the bus, the announcement system, where we can do everything in-house.
Right.
And then, when we do that, then the sky's the limit. We
Right,
can
that's
advertise
awesome.
all kinds of announcements. I mean, you can put in a sugar sand festival and then pull it out 2 weeks later. I'm dying to be able to do that.
Right.
And that's something, yeah, we can't wait for that to happen. But if you have to leave it on for 3 or 4 months, then people are going to be on, why are they talking sugar sand festival? It was 4 weeks ago.
Right.
So we're limited by that now, but yeah, I think, good idea, and we're waiting.
Looking forward to it.
Any other comments, questions?
All right,
Thank you very
thanks.
much, Bob.
Yeah.
Next item, Mr. Miller is going to talk to us about the vision and mission statements for PSTA.
Thank you. Well, I'm glad this is on your agenda, just to keep you updated on some things. The PSTA, like any good organization, has an adopted mission and vision statement. A mission statement is defined as what you do what does PSTA do? Well, we run the buses, but maybe in a little bit more illustrative terms. The vision statement is where you want to go, or where you want your organization, what you want your organization to be forward thinking. And an initiative that we have going on right now within the organization is to develop what are called scorecards, or you probably maybe have heard a management principle, a balanced scorecard, where the organization sets goals that can be measured, and success can be measured at the PSTA organization level, and then each department of PSTA has their own set of goals that help to achieve the agency's goals, and then individual employees also have goals in their performance evaluation, and those tie up to their department goals, which tie to the greater goal, and all of that has to be grounded in all those goals and objectives need to be grounded in, well, what moving the agency forward and the mission and vision. So the reason that we are taking a look at our mission and vision statement, which is about, the last time the board adopted it was about 10 years ago, or 2009, is to make sure we have a good updated mission and vision statement that we tie all of these new balanced scorecards to. So in your packet on page 56 is a little trip down memory lane where you can see the current, very wordy mission and vision statements for 2009. The board had a workshop on January 13th where there was some discussion, but it was a workshop, so they couldn't take a vote. There was some discussion about a alternative mission and vision. They kind of flipped what is the adopted vision to becoming the mission. And then staff has gone through a number of reviews, and then if you flip to page 57, the PSTA Executive Committee, these are the 5 executive leaders of the PSTA board. That's Chair Darden Rice from St. Petersburg, the Vice Chair is Janet Long, County Commissioner, the Secretary Treasurer is Joe Barkley from Bel Air Bluffs, and 2 other members, Pat Gerard, another County Commissioner, and I'm forgetting the 5th, oh my gosh. Bill Johnson, immediate past chair, right. They're making this recommendation to the board that the wording on page 57 becomes our new mission and vision statement with the proposed mission that we connect people to places. That is what PSTA does. Yes, we do run lots of buses, but we also do the Direct Connect, and we do our paratransit program, DART. And we fund other types of services like the Jelly Trolley that are not our own buses, but they are another entity's buses. And in the future, we want to be innovative and provide other kinds of technology, whatever it may be. So, but our purpose is really about the people that we carry and the customers, and about getting them to where they need to go. And then our vision is for public transportation in a more broad sense to become a real viable choice for more people, to become the first choice for transportation and a driving force for social, environmental, and economic vitality in the community through innovation and partnership. It's like Battle Hymn of the Republic. Right? You gotta sing that while you sing it. But yeah, with the song. You can kind of see some of the other ideas that were thrown out there about different wording. Wording varieties. I would imagine once we have this scorecard system in place starting this summer, we're almost done with it. We'll give you an update on the scorecard process, just so you have a sort of sense of how the organization is all driving toward these higher level goals, all the way down to the individual employee. I would say that if you have any thoughts on different words or a different mission and vision, I would take those, but I cannot promise you that the board will really be that interested in new ideas. They've been very explicit with me that they don't want to get into a wordsmithing 2-hour by committee discussion on this. So I think they're going to say to one another, take it or leave it. Because but if anyone has any questions or thoughts on it, you can let me know and I'll let the PSTA board know.
Well, so this really, this shapes how you evaluate programs within PSTA. Is this part of like any advertising or promotional materials? How will that affect us as riders as well, is I guess part of the question.
Well, and again, I think it's what you said initially. It's these are the principal guiding forces to theoretically everything that we do. Every policy that we make needs to be in accordance with our mission, the purpose of our organization, and trying to lead us toward this vision statement. I don't think it would be, it's not really a marketing plan. I think some transit systems do put their mission and vision as a statement inside the bus so that the customers can see that. It might be an idea we might want to do. But yeah, I think as the track committee, I think hopefully this wouldn't be the case, but if you would see something come before you that you felt was contradictory to our mission and vision, or you didn't really understand how it fit the organization, then you should let us know.
Any questions or comments from the members?
I think the recommended mission could almost be a marketing tagline.
So do I.
Yeah.
It works.
Connect people to places.
Yes.
You talk about posting on the bus, you put small letters, mission statement, but that's what you do, and it's a great tagline.
It's like
Yeah.
mission statement. Short enough to be posted on the bus. And then they can go and get the full story. Once you have this decorated is exactly how you want it.
Exactly.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Miller. Any other comments? All right. Then the final item in terms of information items, yes, okay, is one that is very near and dear to, I know to me and to I think to a number of the members here. We had talked when we were planning our ideas for this year, the whole idea of having initiatives. We talked about having, position papers or something like that, but we've now worded that to make it the most achievable goals that we can, taking the initiatives that we had agreed. There were really 3 that we had talked about. The one that again I talk about all the time is the whole safety issue, and I've heard a number of you talk about that. The whole issue of safety from end to end, from when we leave our homes to when we get to our destinations and back, not just safety on the buses. The issue of the image of public transportation as it relates to, we talked about the public art, the shelters and so on. And then the third being the issue of regionalism and how that fits for all of us as riders. And so I had talked with Cassandra about this, about how do we go ahead and do this, and she had a lot of very good guidance for me in terms of how do we hope to best achieve something from this. Interestingly, one of the things that I've done this past month is I have gone to the board meetings every month and given this quick presentation, but I'd never actually even talked with several of the board members, and I still haven't talked with a lot of them. And so I actually made some appointments, and I did meet with the executive committee members, and just to say, this is who I am, and hello, and is, how can we work best with you? And something that I thought was very interesting, all of them said this. I've heard people on the committee say, well, our board doesn't even ride the buses. And they all said that, you know, that's exactly true, that the majority of them don't ride the buses a lot because of the same reasons that we complain about. They're busy going from meeting to meeting, and how do you do that easily while riding our bus system? And therefore, they do care very much what we say. They say, because we are not riding, we really do care what you as riders have to say. And so I thought that was actually very comforting to me. I didn't want us to feel like, well, we're just kind of a gratuitous thing where they have to have a committee of riders. They really do care what we say. And this, to me, seems to be one of the ways in which I think we can reach out best to them with some of the statements and say, this is what we as riders see that you as a periodic rider and maybe not a regular rider don't necessarily see. And so one of the things that I wanted to do is, because we have a limited amount of time here, I wanted, we've talked about the idea of having those three pieces have almost like a subcommittee or a group of a couple of us work on crafting that statement separate from this meeting, bring it to the meeting and present it and have the committee discuss it and approve it. And then, and Cassandra, tell me, maybe you say it much better than I do, how we actually structure this and going to the board with our statement.
Right, so these is your initiatives to accomplish them all and raise awareness and get people to understand the position of this committee. The idea is to craft and send a letter of concern or a letter of support to an appropriate body. So for each one of these, the appropriate body may be different. In some cases, it may be the PSTA board that you're requesting an action from. In other cases, it may be the Forward Pinellas board or the Florida Department of Transportation. And so staff would help you craft that letter of support or craft that letter of concern so that you all could agree to send that letter. For your three initiatives, I would suggest picking a primary point person that can work with staff to help craft a letter. If you wanted to have multiple people be a part of reviewing that letter, we could do that. That subcommittee would be required to be in the sunshine because it is advising this committee, who would then take a vote and then send the letter. So if you have an individual working with staff, that can just be done on the fly. If you decide to have a group work on it, we'd have to, again, make that part of government in the sunshine. So for the safety initiative as one to take up first, since this is Gloria's pet project. We used that as an example when she and I sat down to talk about, well, what's the process we would go through in order to move these initiatives forward. So in this case, we decided that the issues that she was bringing up were not necessarily something that PSTA could take action on, but we could influence. And so again, the letter would go to, would outline the issues that the riders are experiencing, and Gloria would outline those and then make a request, and we would then format those letters to send to the Department of Transportation and Forward Pinellas in this case. We would bring those drafts to you all where you could discuss them, discuss the issue, make sure that it completely describes the issue that you're having, and make sure that everybody's clear about what action is being requested or what steps would be taken next. So that's what we thought would be a good process to move these initiatives forward. I think out of this meeting, if there were some volunteers or people who were really interested in that issue or some of these other issues, then we could start to move those initiatives forward too. But we'll take one at a time in terms of coming to this group, so you all can have a conversation about it.
And can we will then be able to send this to them in advance of the meeting? Like, if we structure this for safety, can we send it to our committee?
We'll send it to our committee,
before
this committee to discuss before it actually gets sent. yes. Yeah. As a discussion item, like it is here today. Certainly we'll have to have more time for it. So it's really like sort of a consensus discussion, if you think that's a good way to go. Any comments about using that as a process?
That seems like a great approach. I'm imagining even more on the back end, because we're all ambassadors, not just for riders, but for PSTA and transit in general, taking this letter, and when we mail it to these different bodies, getting us to go up and do our 3 minutes saying, look, you got a letter, stressing the importance. This isn't a bunch of fly-by-night folks sitting around a bar complaining about buses. We are the Transit Rider Advisory Committee. This is serious. This was a great study. Take this serious. City X Council, Citywide Council, County Commission, whoever we show up at Florida Dot, someone getting the next time someone's in Tallahassee, we'll go up and do that. That would be wonderful. I would love, I'm not particularly interested in safety or art, but I love regionalism. But if someone were to draft those, I would be delighted. Maybe when we're writing the position for appointing people, we should also write a position that says those of us could go representing, not just say, I'm a citizen, but say, hey, I'm on track, and this is our position, and we advocate for this. Please take it seriously.
Yeah, that's a great potential next step.
Yeah, I'd love
But
it.
I think at this point, we need someone who's passionate about each one of these, who can help shape and define what they think the issue is for you all as a committee. So
I like to write. I like to write.
You like to write?
Yeah.
He's letting that be known.
Is there a specific one of the subjects that's
Bob's
of
laughing.
interest to you?
I enjoy your writing.
You've seen some of my zingers on Facebook.
Yeah.
What do we need to do today? I mean, you mentioned, I care a great deal about safety. I would love to start working on that, but I don't want to just say, oh, I'm going to do that. Do we need to, as a committee, vote on something like that? Or can we
This
just
is an
say-
information item in a discussion, so you can't vote
Mhm.
necessarily, but you can say, I'm interested, I'll volunteer to do that one, that kind of conversation can happen under an information item.
Interested in the safety committee part.
I'm interested in safety and regionalism. I do have one question. So if a committee writes a letter, do we need to then bring it back to TRAC and then get approval from TRAC before we send it out?
I would recommend that, because that allows you all to discuss it. So let's say, for example, Richard, you decide you're gonna write the regionalism letter. What I would ask you to do is we could either have a phone conversation with staff, or you come in and we can brainstorm ideas. You go write the first draft. If you have some facts or some things that you want help with, then staff could fill those in, kind of help you massage the letter, and then when you're comfortable with the letter, we bring it to this group for a discussion.
And would it be 50% plus one, or are we going to go with more of a consensus than that on approving the letter?
I guess that's up to you, since this is initiatives. I
guess
think
that's
that
just a
you
question.
Probably,
No, we don't.
at this point, you probably go ahead and make it a formal action and do a 50 plus one.
So it's like a resolution we resolve.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Make it
I mean, if you wanted to make it in the form of a resolution, it's fine. If you want to make it in form in a letter, I think that a letter usually you can have more discussion and more longer facts. A resolution is, we can put, whereas, you're asking somebody else to take an action, so I would recommend a letter as opposed to you taking an action.
Bullet point?
Yeah, bullet points, I mean, and it doesn't have to be, it can be, as long as the issue is covered in a way that this committee feels that it's adequately addressed, then it can be 1 page, it can be 10 pages, it can be whatever you guys want and think it'll get your point across. I would encourage you shorter, and be focused, but you see what I'm saying, is there's no prescription for this necessarily.
I was on I was on a condo board and I've worked in other things. You threw away the little phrase, in the sunshine, but that's really not that hard. I think that's really a great idea. If we have a couple people from staff, a couple people from this, just simply saying, hey, we're going to meet Tuesday at 1 o'clock in this room and brainstorm. And anyone who wants to sit and watch, there's no skullduggery going on. We're going to have a working meeting.
Right.
You know, we'll give you a soda if you want to watch. But then come and sit and work together. I would love to hold these meetings here rather than at a Perkins or at a Starbucks where I love that. When you say sunshine, I mean, that is really cool. Again, at our condo, we made sure any kind of meeting like that was at the pool. Everyone was invited. We told
Right.
them all what time. It's really easy. It just,
it's no
real easy. I love that.
It's not hard, it's not difficult.
Right,
But
right.
it's just about scheduling.
And then, by the way,
Sometimes when you do that, it just takes a little bit longer to get everybody, and that's totally fine.
And then we can have as many as we want.
Absolutely.
A couple, three of us, a couple people from staff.
And you may say, well, we're working on something for a few months out for the track, so we'll meet a half an hour before. You can do that. But anybody who's interested, we can organize. Staff can organize how to meet. But if you don't pick somebody, we will to be your primary point person, so that
Is that right, Sergeant?
I will.
Are we just supposed to pick one of these to write on, or can we write on more than one, or?
You could be on.
Yeah, you
I
can
think
be
it can
whatever you want.
Depending on how we structure this, I think what we would love to have is somebody who's like a primary,
Right.
like a driver. Like I said, I keep, like, safety is the one that I'm talking about all the time, but if someone else would be as passionate about it, then I don't need to own anything any more than anyone else does. But if you have something that you're particularly passionate about, I think.
More buses. More buses.
Well, we have our three that we agreed as a committee that we're going to be moving forward with.
So why don't we do this, if everybody's okay with Gloria sort of taking the
Yes.
primary role in safety. Well, I think a few of you have mentioned that you were interested. Send Marianne an email. I got Richard, I got Elizabeth. And we'll sit down with Gloria, we'll organize some thoughts, and then she can facilitate a discussion with us and you.
Thank you.
Great.
Okay. The June service changes, was there something you wanted to cover on
The June service changes are going to be pretty minor, as Bob mentioned. Some running time changes, maybe some small schedule changes. So we'll send those out to you. I think we have a matrix that marketing is working on, but we'll email it out to you so you have them. But they're pretty minor.
Saddles board should be going up any day now,
Yeah.
by the way, at key locations throughout the county.
that? And then are there any member comments? Those would be Richard.
I have a question. I never heard about Senator Latvalla's regionalism bill. I know that there was, these amendments added by Senator Brandis and Lee, and so I could anybody kind of get me up to date on that?
Yeah, Senator Latvalla's sponsored what he called and other people called the T-BARTA bill, which was it started out as maybe a larger effort to look at a new regional planning, and when I say region, I mean Tampa Bay wide, so Pinellas, Hillsborough, Pasco. There is something called T-BARTA already, and Senator Latvalla's bill just basically reorganized the board, the governance of T-BARTA, and it ended up passing, and it's now before the governor to see if he'll sign it. And I don't know why he wouldn't sign it, but it basically got rid of 2 counties that are on the current T-BARTA board, and so what did it go down 7 to 5, I think, and it changed the name so that the second T in T-BARTA stands for transit now instead of transportation. So theoretically, they're going to be more focused on regional transit, which is, I think, a good thing. Senator Brandis and Senator Lee put an amendments in at the very last minute that basically tried to, as Senator Ladala called it, water it down, or they were trying to make it impossible to ever have a rail system in the Tampa Bay. And they were worried. There's been people that have been calling the legislators, them, and saying this is really a secret way to get a rail line built between Pinellas and Tampa. And so in response to that, they put some requirements in that any rail proposed by this new organization would have to get approval, a separate approval by the state legislature. I don't know all the specifics, but Senator Latvala worked his magic. He's a very experienced legislator, and he, at first that looked like it was like a poison pill that was going to kill it and nothing was going to happen, and then he resuscitated it, modified that language in some way, I'm not exactly sure how, and it passed. They agreed to it and it passed. The issue is that that's sort of step one. They just really changed the governance, the board that makes up TBARTA. They didn't give it any money to do anything regional or any new powers. And the legislators who supported it, and lots of legislators supported it, keep saying, oh, we'll wait till next year. Next year, we'll come back and we'll give it money or we'll give it power. So that we'll see. We'll see what happens to it. But that was a good start to it. That's a good question, though.
If I remember right, TBARTA started out like that. They had no funding for what, 2-3 years, something like that, and before they finally gave it a little small amount of money for staff, hiring staff.
Yeah, and I've heard people locally who were around when TBARTA was created say this is what they said that time too. That they said, oh, wait till next year, we'll give them money, and it never really
Yeah, the first couple of years of TBARTA, the Florida Department of Transportation had set aside money for studies, and so they had a staff person at the Florida Department of Transportation that was acting as the executive director, and it took them about 1.5 years to figure out how to get some local funding from their agencies that were sitting on the board. They later consolidated with the Bay Area Commuter Services and then had some funding to conduct a van pool and carpool program. So it's been an evolution. They do get donations from their member organizations.
My comment was going to be on the same subject, so I'm glad you brought that up, that I have friends that send me mailings that the rabid opponents of rail have sent out a flyer calling Senator Latvala, Turncoat, and Benedict Arnold, specifically saying, we had an election where people said they don't want rail. But you say, well, really, no, that when Greenlight failed, it was a coalition of people who thought their taxes were going up, and people who didn't want buses in their neighborhood, and people who thought this, and some percent didn't want rail, but it was not in any way that 51% of people in Pinellas didn't want rail. And so to take that take on it, my problem is that I don't know who to say that to. You know, that letter goes out to people who are all against rail. And so their take was, even to have language that didn't prevent rail with a silver bullet and a wood stake through its heart was destroying American democracy. And so I wanted the board to know about that. If you're not on that mailing list, I'm not either. My friends, anytime anyone gets one of these, have to send it to me just to raise my blood pressure again. So that is out there, that even that little piece of just a possibility of hopeful helping allow a study was enough to have these folks, these rabid and anti-trained people, just start all over again. There you go.
Well,
that's my comment.
An issue that I think this started as the same issue, but it's kind of branched off into its own separate issue, is a discussion about a regional MPO, taking forward Pinellas and combining it with Hillsborough and Pasco to make a Tampa Bay-wide metropolitan planning organization. Senator Latvalle's bill doesn't do that yet. I mean, maybe down the road, but there's a separate effort that's going on locally, doesn't require state legislation, that kicked off on Friday with a huge workshop over at the St. Pete College Epicenter, just from Pasco, Pinellas, and Hillsborough, that is doing a study right now that is supposed to get done by this winter, by the end of this calendar year, to look at that issue about maybe having a regional MPO. And there's an editorial in the Tampa Bay Times, I think, today or tomorrow. Yeah, supporting that idea.
Great.
We'll see.
Yes, Liz.
My pet project, how's the Breathe Easy zone doing at Grand Central? Awesome.
Clean and
Yeah?
cancer-free. It's doing well. It was expanded.
check
It was
it out.
expanded to Clearwater.
Oh, yeah?
It's now at Clearwater,
Park Street.
at Park Street,
Yeah.
and at Grand Central.
Yes,
Okay.
at Park Street, they were wandering, people were walking toward the area where they were supposed to be smoking. They were still walking around with their cigarettes. I was there yesterday.
Oh, really?
But yes, but it
And
wasn't.
were you there to corral them? In the
No, I was not, but I mean, they were gravitating toward the area where they're supposed to be smoking, but they were
wild.
carrying their lit cigarettes and walking.
That's wild. That's
So, yeah.
where we belong.
Getting there.
Right, it's good.
Baby steps.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That is really good.
I saw a new Breathe Easy sign at Grand Central yesterday. I was like, oh, that's cool.
All right.
Yeah, the signs just, James, our chief operating officer, has a good presentation where shows that as they were painting it, and without anything, just the paint, people started to just do it just go there.
Oh, really?
Excellent,
Um,
excellent.
Some kind of.
And the sign just got delivered like this past week, so they just went up, yeah.
Fantastic.
But it's making a little bit of progress.
Mm-hmm.
I talked to a driver at the other Pinellas Park, and there was somebody right there getting on the bus smoking. So the driver and I kind of went, rolled our eyes, and I said, we're going to get that Breathe Easy zone soon. And he said, yeah, I sure hope so. So the drivers are on the side of that zone.
Oh.
Because they don't like people smoking
Right.
and coming up on the bus smoking.
Yeah.
So.
When we were down at Grand Central celebrating Earth Day and having riders they were standing in line, they got a free bus pass if they threw a cup of dirt into the dirt pile to represent how much pollution they're saving. And this guy came up to me and said, well, can I keep smoking my cigarette while I get the line? I was like, well, I guess I'm not supposed to say no. You can, but it's not really. I said, it's not in the spirit of Earth Day to be smoking while you're doing this. And he put it out.
Aww.
He's like,
You
okay.
named him. That's great.
I don't know.
Yeah, Richard.
Last comment, promise. Senator Latvalle is term limited. Next year is going to be his next year, and he might be running for governor. So if we want to work on this regionalism and we want to get our letter out there, we might want to work on that as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Yeah. His term, he gets one more year.
Yeah. That's what next year's the election year, so.
Yeah, and he'll be in the legislature next spring for his final time.
Will he still be the chair of
Yeah.
appropriations?
Yeah.
If there are no other comments, then we will adjourn the meeting to June 20th.
June 20th, I will be with, like all of you, and I will be wanting to leave here early because I will be
Catching a bus.
transit riding.
Yay! We're very proud of you. So, okay,
I'm
well,
getting
thank
more
you.
nervous about it as it gets closer.
Awesome.
It will be interesting.
Oh, and spread the word, half price monthly passes for the month of June.
Let us work together.
No coincidence between having to For everybody, half price, $35.
I just didn't want to step on your toes.
Already, years already. Yeah, darn, I was thinking, what is that?
Well, the track number is.
75%.
Yeah, we already get that.
I don't like
Yeah.
St. Louis. I live in St. Barbara. Who are you? Well, I sit on the damn track. And if it's not a joke, it's great. And the other people say.
Nicely done.
Whether it's.
I was watching it.
Good job.
It's our board.
I want to get more and more comfortable each month. By December, I'll know what I'm doing and.
And then you can